Hello, a bunch of the original artwork and you're going to find these very magical photos of this lavender sitting at this kind of antique. I think initially I was thinking about doing unicorns on this page. Stardog decides to go in search of this bear she's just read about, and we've got Sun Bear down there floating along. You know, have a page filled with one creature, but look how many different forms this one creature can take. Inspired by a lot of Japanese art, this size pen, which is the 5M, and I try and get the colours and to get Stardog just right. Just as she glances to look towards the sun bear, this big flock of birds rises up and blocks her sight of the sun bear. And this is the paper I'm using, and in a field of woolly sheep, Stardog curls up fast asleep. Hello, I am going to attempt to film a video about this book, but I am terrible at talking to a camera, so I've got my little movement light here, which I'm going to talk to instead and get started. Hello there. My name is E.K.Mosley, and I am coming on here today to talk a little bit about my new picture book, Stardog, Where is the Sun Bear? And this is a bunch of the original artwork I have brought out of the plan chest to share with you today. So in this picture book, we have all of the friends that Stardog meets in the last Stardog, but in this picture book we also have a little sun bear. And in the story, it's almost as much a story of Sun Bear's story as it is Stardog's. But at the beginning of the story, Stardog is reading a book about sun bears with Frog. They're having a nice little picnic, and in this book there is a sun bear, and Stardog thinks, I'm a Stardog, so I want to go looking for this sun bear. Meanwhile, Sun Bear is having a bit of a journey as well, and throughout the story we have Sun Bear pondering about friendship and family and togetherness. And so I'm gonna share some of the artwork and my thoughts, my inspiration while making this picture book. So let us begin here with the end pages. So these come at the end of a book, and these ones come at the front, so they're sort of this part of the book. They appear just there. And for this page, I was really inspired by a lot of Japanese art. I was inspired by the origami paper, wallpapers, fabric patterns, and I also took the opportunity to draw some more little frogs in there. And here we have Sun Bear playing with a ball, and that ball sort of looks like a sun, which I thought would be fun. And so on this page we've got Sun Bear on one side and Stardog on the other, and we're going to see if Stardog can find the sun bear by the end of the picture book. And here is, ooh, that's not the right page. Here's that first page again. So they're all having a picnic down there. You can see tiger swimming. It's a nice sunny summer's day. And at the beginning of the story, Stardog decides to go in search of this bear she's just read about and see if she can find a sun bear. And this was also quite fun to do because at the end of the last Stardog, then we see all the friends end up in this wildflower meadow. And in this book I was kind of taking the opportunity to think about how they would live in that space, like what they would bring to this wildflower meadow, and how they would make it their own. So here we've got Crow has made a really nice little tree house and moss hanging out one of the windows there. I've got a little post box down there. And so that was fun to do a little bit of storytelling in the illustration to expand upon that home that they made in the first book. And then over here we have Sun Bear hidden behind a pile of apples. And when I was kind of coming up with the idea for this story, it began from a single page later on in the book, which I'll show you. But I was thinking about a sort of Where's Wally, but with Stardog. But it's also actually quite easy to find Sun Bear, and so this sort of like humorous idea of, you know, on each page Stardog is looking for this Sun Bear, and we, the reader, we're like, look, Stardog, the little bear, it's just over here, but she can't see it, and we have to sort of wait until she does. So that was part of the premise behind this picture book. And it's a rhyming picture book, so all the words are rhyming, and it's a bit shorter than the last Stardog as well, so it's a quicker bedtime read if you're reading for a bedtime story. Okay, so we go from this page here into this spread there, and this was one of the first images I did for the book, and part of the process of creating this story was thinking about art that I just felt passionate about making. So I might just have like a visual idea in my head for something, rather than writing the story all out, storyboarding, and then going into the artwork. I almost did it in reverse. I sort of thought about the artwork. What was it that I wanted to challenge myself to try and do with this book? I was much more experimental with my approach as well. So in the last Stardog, I would often, you know, pencil everything out, like every single butterfly, every single flower, I would pencil out and then do the line work over it, and then the colour, and then more line over that. And this one I just sort of said, let's just see what happens on the page. So the only things I penciled out and penned out on this page was the window, and everything else, even Sun Bear and the tree and the hive, was just things that just happened as I thought about them. There was no pre-planning at all for this page. But some of the inspiration for the imagery in this was Gustav Klimt, a lot of the Impressionists. I just adore how much kind of, you know, foliage and nature they cram into their artwork. So yeah, I was looking at a lot of Gustav Klimt, and also Monet did this really beautiful picture of sunflowers in a garden, which I looked at. And then I was also looking at this picture I came across of a Labrador called Fiddle, who lived in Belgium and became so famous for sitting at this window that overlooked a river that Godiva Chocolates used this Labrador in one of their chocolate adverts. And if you look up Fiddle the Labrador, then you'll be able to find these very magical photos of this Labrador sitting at this kind of antique, beautiful window, and, you know, snoozing, having a nice day looking out. And so I thought I'd do one of my own interpretation of that with Stardog. And I looked at a lot of antique windows and stained glass windows, and for my stained glass window I decided to put in all the planets to hark back to that idea of the sort of celestial Stardog and the celestial Sun Bear. And it's a sort of theme that I touch on in some of the later pages as well, is this theme of the planets and what do they mean to Sun Bear when they come together. Okay, so the next page is sort of, this was how I initially imagined it. But then I really enjoyed the blankness of that, so I couldn't bear to paint onto it anymore. So I ended up doing it again, but with all the birds that I had intended to paint on in the first place. That's the one with just the sky, and that's there with all the birds on. And I was really inspired by the Winnie the Pooh. I think a lot of us know the story of Winnie the Pooh taking the balloon up to go steal the honey from the honeybees, pretending to be a little rain cloud. But in this case, instead of being a rain cloud, we've got a sunny sun bear on this balloon that looks like a sun drifting in the sky among all of these birds. And I hope it doesn't look like Stardog can actually see sun bear. In my mind, it was sort of Stardog is, you know, looking the opposite way, and then just as she glances to look towards the sun bear, this big flock of birds rises up and blocks her sight of the sun bear. So there are all the birds there, and these are all real birds. I think maybe there's a few made up ones, a few hummingbirds I think I made up around here, but a lot of these are actually real birds. Down here we have something called a gynandromorph cardinal, and I actually have put in quite a few of these bilateral gynandromorphs, which are real. They do exist on planet Earth, and you get them in lots of different animals, and all it means is that they have this genetic mutation that means they are half male and half female, which when I found that out, I was just like, wow, that exists on our planet. That is a real creature. It's not mythology, it is a real bird. This, I think, was sighted in America not that long ago, a gynandromorph cardinal. On this previous page, we had I put in a blue morph, gynandromorph, just there. So half of it, the darker side is the female and the lighter side is the male. And that is one butterfly. But with this just phenomenal genetic variation. And I think that was another thing I was thinking about when doing this book, was sort of putting in all the little quirks of nature that I found just completely mind-blowingly magical as a child and also as an adult. And what an amazing, you know, planet we live on, and all of these creatures. You know, we've got a magical Stardog here, who she is magical, and she's got her magic star crown. But then we also have all of these amazing creatures that truly do exist on this planet. And how amazing is that? So we've got some honey guys, we've got dwarf kingfishers, we've got hummingbirds, starlings, bullfinches, some of my favourite things, fairy wrens. So these down here are fairy wrens, all around Stardog. They have really, really cute names as well. So they think cool things like the superb fairy wren or the spectacular fairy wren. And I think they live in Australia. And they're just so colourful, and they really do look like little fairies. What else do we have? We have, where is, I'm pretty sure I've put an indigo bunting somewhere in here, which is this bird that can navigate by the stars. We have a starling just there, some jumbo fruit doves, and yeah, so all sorts of birds for you to peruse and look at and see if you can identify yourself as well. And so then we move on to frogs, but that I think was another thing I was trying to think about for each page, was having, you know, one creature like a bird or a frog, and how diverse that one, you know, it's a bird or a dog or a frog or a horse, but actually within that family of species, then there's so much diversity. So they come in so many different colours and shapes and sizes, and I thought it'd be fun just to sort of, you know, have a page filled with one creature, but look how many different forms this one creature can take. And yeah, so this is the Frog Fun Fair, and again we get little sun bear hidden on the page, sunning on that rock there, hidden from Stardog again. Got frog over here, got some kingfishers there, and on this page I sort of had groups of things. So we've got we've got some 3 little pigs up there hanging out. We've got again our fox and our goose, and down here we've got a tortoise and a hare. And so Sunbear is looking at all these creatures who have come to see this frog fun fair together, and is contemplating, would this be more fun if I had someone to share this day with? And then that leads us on to this page here, where we've also got lots of wild horses. We've still got some frogs, continued on from that last page. But this time they're in this magical forest, and I think initially I was thinking about doing unicorns on this page, but then I remembered seeing these zebras that had genetic mutations, and I thought, well, they are pretty much as good as unicorns, and you can truly, I mean, unicorns also exist obviously, but these also exist. And this one here is got a genetic mutation called pseudomelanistic, so it affects the way the pattern of the zebra comes out. And these ones are 2 babies and an adult. They're leucistic zebras, and so their black stripes, instead of coming out the typical black stripe, they are this sort of goldy reddy colour. And then down here we've got a blue donkey, which might or might not be real. A little bit made up, but that's fine. We've also got Little Muse again, who turned up on some of the previous pages, this little blue cat down here, and she now continues to turn up on, I think, all the pages, and has her own little story going on. We've got little dragons and caterpillars, and again our fox and our goose there. And of course we've got Stardog having a bit of a chat with these wild horses there, and Sunbear sort of waving hello, and yet again Stardog is oblivious to this Sunbear's attempt to say to be found. And then for anyone who is a fan of the kakapo, this flightless bird that lives in New Zealand, I believe, and these I put in for a friend of mine who adores kakapos, and she told me about the kakapo, and I was bewitched by how adorable they were. And so they are hanging out in this forest with all the wild horses as well. Oh, and there are some more fairy wrens who've come along from the previous page, just hanging out. And so yeah, lots of fun things to find on that page, hopefully. And next, oh yeah, and maybe I should talk, so with this page and also the frog page, again, very little line work. So all the trees, all of this over here was straight in with the Posca pen paint. These Posca pens, they come in different sizes, which is really useful. So this is one of the smaller sizes. I mainly use this size, which is the 1M, and this size pen, which is the 5M. And I try and get the colours in these sizes, but they do also come in this size. So this emerald green is a 3M, and that's very useful. And let me see. And one of the ways I work with the paint pen, so here you can see the tip of that one. I'll show these together. So the tip of this one is different to the tip of that one, and that's because on this one I've actually removed the tip of one of these pens. So that's that pen, which is this fine line tip. And I've put it into this pen because this pen only comes, that's the smallest size it comes in. But I really love using this green for detail. So I swapped out the nib on that one. So I could do all the little ferns and clovers on this page. And also the tree leaves up here. Let's get a bit closer. But yeah, so that again was straight in, pretty much with colour. But I did do, again, Stardog. I usually always do Stardog. I draw her out first because she actually is, usually takes me quite a long time to get Stardog just right. I could spend, you know, two hours to half a day just trying to get her expression and placement exactly how I want it, because if I get her wrong, it feels like, you know, the rest of the page could be, you know, as good as I could possibly make it, but it still won't feel right if I don't get Stardog looking the correct expression. So this page I initially did, if you recognize it, for the cover, and once I finished it, so it's like the end pages. And initially, after I did the end pages, I decided, maybe that would make a nice cover and have a big sun where I could put some information about the book. And then I also decided to put it into the book as its own double page spread. And we've got Sun Bear down there floating along behind Stardog, who still hasn't noticed that Sun Bear is a lot closer than she's realised. And they float down this little stream and they come here to this field of woolly dream sheep. And this page was inspired by a page from the very first picture book I ever did with Stardog in, called Stardog's Tale. And let me find, oh, there it is. And I did a page like this. This book I did, I think, in 2020, 2021. And it says, and in a field of woolly sheep, Stardog curls up fast asleep. And so I just took the colour palette I had done in that one and I used it for this page. And if you look closely, you can see all the little sheep have stars above their head because they are dream sheep. And Stardog is this little shepherdess looking after all of the dreams. And here is Sun Bear having a little bit of a midnight apple snack. And I think this might actually be, the page where it's possibly the hardest, this one, or maybe the flower page, one of the hardest pages to find Sun Bear on, just because the colours are all Sun Bear colours. Yeah, I asked a few people to look for Sun Bear on this page, and this does seem to be a more challenging one. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Love drawing sheep. I've got little babies down there, little lambs, having some nice dreams. Okay, ooh, this page was the very first artwork I created for this story. And if you look on the back, that is the only page where it's actually two pieces of paper held together by some washi tape. And that is how I worked for the entirety of the last Stardog. And this is the paper I'm using. It's called Fontaine Paint on Multi Techniques A3 250 GSM paper. And it's just this really good natural card, very sturdy for acrylic. These acrylic paint pens. And when I was working on the last Stardog, then I had to scan all of this art into the computer to get it ready for the book. And it was quite difficult to do these joins because there was no kind of information in between. So I'd often be photoshopping for, you know, half a day or a day to create this seamless look, so it didn't look like there was a join between the two pages. So for Stardog, Where is the Sunbear, I ended up buying a huge roll of that same paper, cutting all of the pages out to size so that I wouldn't have to worry about a join. And it meant that when I scanned the page, and I could sort of scan a little bit longer, and then I'd have this kind of crossover section in between where it made it very, very quick for me to bring this into Photoshop and join the two scanned sides together very seamlessly and very quickly. And I wish I had learned to do that earlier, but alas, we have done it now, and we have learned. So, but yeah, so this page was sort of where Sunbear began as a story, and there was no intention for this to be a story in any way, shape or form. I was still working on Stardog, the last Stardog book 2, and I was doing a lot of experimentation with like the imagery, this place that they had ended up, the Wildflower Meadow. What did it look like? What creatures were in it? So creating this page was very much just me putting in, you know, all the things that brought me joy, like the animals, the flowers, really challenging myself with the way I use colour, getting the colours how I wanted them to look, and creating these sort of drifts of flowers and fairies. So it really began as a piece of sort of development artwork and world building. But as I was drawing all the little creatures, I started thinking about fairy tales and lullabies and nursery rhymes. I put in some sheep, I put in 3 little pigs, put in some Billy Goat Gruff, and then I sort of started thinking about Wind in the Willows type characters, and I put in a badger, and then somehow this little sun bear, maybe you can see just there, made its way onto the page. And the moment I painted the sun bear, I was just sort of, I remember for the first time I watched a video about sun bears when I was about 8 or 9, and I just thought that sun bear had like such a sweet little expression. I was looking at a lot of pictures of sun bears in the wild and in zoos, and they were just had so much character. They were so fun to research that it made me want to continue painting them. And so I ended up doing another page, which I think was the one with the balloon in the sky, this kind of Winnie the Pooh inspired page. And I think I've always wanted to do a story with a bear. I love like Little Bear, I love Paddington, I love Winnie the Pooh. So there were a lot of bears, Brother Bear, I love that movie. So I was really inspired by those kind of characters, and I thought, could I create my own? I love the idea of it being a sun bear since I had a Stardog already. And so yeah, with the initial story, then it was purely the artwork that was informing each page. Could I create pages where I could hide this little sun bear in it and fill it with lots of things that people could look for and sort of come back each time and find something new. And so that leads us on to this next spread here, which is the sunflower, a sunflower page. And this is also inspired by a page that comes right at the end of the last Stardog. But I just love the idea of having Sun Bear hidden among all these sunflowers, almost becoming a sunflower himself. And we've got lots of butterflies here, and Frog and Martha eating some watermelon. And so it's just a very kind of joyful, sunny, summery scene. And again, we've got a nice character, Fox and Goose down there, which I've got a story for one day written, but one day to illustrate. Yeah, so the butterflies lead us on to this butterfly lullaby sky page, which in a similar way to the bird page earlier, I was thinking about putting in, you know, one creature, a butterfly, but let's show how many amazing different species we have on this world, in this planet. So you've got peacock butterflies, you've got monarch butterflies, clouded yellow butterflies, blue morph butterflies, some made-up butterflies. And I was really trying to create this feeling of like flow, like almost like music coming across the sky. Because The Last Stardog is a rhyming picture book, I wanted to have this very like lyrical feel to the way the butterflies are moving across the page. And then Sunbear is snoozing on this floating sun, and Stardog is on this flower moon, which we see her sitting on at the beginning of The Last Stardog. And so that leads us from butterflies onto this page with all the planets. And I have included Pluto for anyone who remembers when Pluto was a planet, because that's how I learned. But I just decided to have this page with all the planets, and you know, it's very abstract. You know, we're not in a landscape at all anymore. We're in outer space, and you know, nothing is quite makes sense. But I was sort of thinking like this is Sunbear's imagination, and in Sunbear's imaginings, Sunbear is thinking about the planets being a family, because throughout the story we've had all of Sunbear's ponderings about friendship, about family, what it means to come together. And on this page, Sunbear is thinking about the solar system like a family. At the center of the solar system, there is this sun whose gravity is so great that all the planets are spinning around it. And so Sunbear thinks maybe I could be a sun in someone's family with all of these planet family members in it. And so that we will touch back on again later in the book. And then here, the next page, is this art gallery garden, where again it was inspired a lot by what I was feeling passionate about painting at the time. I just love the way that paintings can look hung in a gallery side by side, and how fun it would be to put together my own little virtual art gallery. And in this art gallery, I was thinking about all the paintings that might speak to the friends in The Last Stardog. You know, what painting might Stardog feel a connection to? What would Tiger feel connected to? And so I had a lot of fun researching paintings for this page as well. So here we've got Henry Rousseau, The Surprise. It has the tiger in the lightning storm. Over here we've got a Japanese painting, and that's Oharu Kosan, the artist, for Crow. Then Stardog is looking at a Van Gogh, that is Starry Night over Rhodes. And then below that we also have a Franz Marc painting of a Labrador in the snow. Over here we've got Frog looking at this very fun frog Japanese painting. In Japanese, the word frog is, I believe, kairu, which has a double meaning in Japan, which means to return, or like to return home. And I just think that's so beautiful. A double meaning. I loved that and I thought that would speak to frog. And then over here I discovered that Van Gogh did this beautiful painting of a moth when I was on my research quest to find moth paintings. I actually don't think I didn't know that Van Gogh had painted that painting before I did this. So that was a nice surprise to find that. And then I think this is one of my favourite pieces is down here we've got Little Muse, and she is looking up at this Chagall painting, which is called The Poet. And in the painting you can see there's a house here, and there's a person inside who I suppose is supposed to be the poet. But in the sky we've got this blue cat. I think when Little Muse looks at this painting, she's looking at that blue cat, and that is her, and she is the poet. So that was a lot of fun for me to research and to look into different artists and different paintings that would speak to the characters of each of these friends. Then also down here, hidden, a little bit hidden hopefully against this blue wallpaper, is Little Blue Sun Bear. And Sun Bear is thinking about wanting someone to paint them. They want someone to love them enough that they would paint a portrait of Sun Bear. And yeah, so that was that. I've got some other artists. A lot of artists actually painted portraits of their pets. Not surprising, because pets are adorable. And so we got Picasso did this very famous drawing of his dachshund, which I think is called Lump. Very beautiful name, Lump. Then there's a Monet painting of a dog there. I don't know if that was his dog or someone else's though. There's a Bertha Morisot. I'm probably not pronouncing any of these names correctly, but she did this beautiful little painting of a dog. And then some of these are just made up, kind of the Stardog with a sheep. And this one was a made up one, but it was very much inspired by Bonnard, who does a lot of paintings with sort of picnic blankets and things. And so I've just got the little kind of two dogs having a bit of a side eye there. And that takes us onto this page, which is a maze of strays. And so we've got all these stray cats roaming about. This is their maze kingdom. We've got some boar statues, some frog statues, and a lot of kind of quite unexplained things are going on. There's sort of water all over the place. And this again was informed by kind of world building. So this maze is a place within the Stardog world, which I hope to bring into the story one day. And so this was just really helpful for me to think about this place and to visually bring it onto a piece of paper, out of my head onto the page, because sometimes I honestly don't know if I can do that. And I'd never drawn or painted a maze before, and this took me quite a few tries to try and get the each of the doorways and corridors in this maze to look how I wanted it to look. So this page was planned a lot more than some of the other pages. It was much more like the kind of art I did in the last Stardog, where I planned very much out, where each tree went, each doorway. The things that I guess weren't planned so much were some of the cats. I think a lot of the cats I just sort of painted in as and when, and all the little frogs and lily pad details in the water there. Yes, we've got Little Muse, we've got, again, Stardog just missing where Sun Bear is. Sun Bear is a bit lost there, but is enjoying the journey nonetheless. And then that takes us onto this snow scene. And this page was, again, very kind of visually led. I think I was just sort of looking to do something much simpler, give us a bit of a break from my massive amounts of cramming as much into a page as possible. And I thought, let's just have a breath to have a bit of space. We have this starry winter night, and on the page we've got a sun bear has built a snow bear, and Stardog has built a snow dog. And they're using the leaves up here to build the crown, and the leaves here for the little sun marking on Sun Bear's chest. And this is the page where Crow finally says, look, there's the Sun Bear, Stardog. You've been missing seeing this whole time. And now they finally meet. And so we still have a bit of the snow on this side, but as this is the Stardog world, which is a dreamlike, fantastical world, we can have snow on one side and we can have flowers on the other side of this bridge. And when I was thinking about this page, I actually added this page in. I think I had moved on to a different page, and I realized we really needed to have a moment where they're first interacting. And I thought back to, in the last Stardog, I had Stardog meeting Moth and Crow, the first friend she makes, on a bridge. And I love all the symbolism that comes with bridge, this idea of connection, forming, crossing boundaries, connection and unity, transition and change, progress and hope, balance, duality, journey and passage. And so what if they were on this sort of almost Monet style bridge, and that's where they meet and become friends. I think I was also thinking about the Winnie the Pooh bridge, and Japanese bridges, and I think there's just something so magical about a bridge. They're always just fun to stand on and walk over. And so what if this sort of snowy scene over here, where Sun Bear is being connected to this side of the page which is full of flowers and life, and all the friends are over there waiting. And on this side you can see lots of little creatures hanging out with their friends. They've got a deer and a robin, you've got some foxes. Over here again you've got another badger. This one has a genetic mutation as well, which is a leucistic badger. Got my Gynandrum or cardinal there, some more fairy wrens, bringing some mail. Goose and fox down there. Got a white eye, which is this beautiful Japanese bird holding a cherry, some dragons, and so lots and lots of different creatures to find. And we've also got some herons, and yeah, so lots of fun creatures to find there. And then that leads us on to Sun Bear has now finally been found by Stardog, and they're walking through this sunny sunflower meadow. But on this page, then Sun Bear, let me find the moment in the book, that Sun Bear has come to the realization that they are looking for a friend. So on that page, we've got the words here say, "Oh, hello there," said Sun Bear. "I'm looking for a friend. Have you seen one anywhere?" "A friend?" said Stardog with a twinkling eye. "Oh yes, I think I saw one. Why, I'll help you look. Over by sunflowers and bees, butterflies and honey. My tummy tells me it's time to eat something yummy." "My dear Sun Bear," sang Stardog, "I heartily agree. Let's go make cake and eat it with tea." So I thought, yeah, I thought it'd be quite fun that at first Sun Bear is sort of looking for a friend but doesn't entirely know what a friend looks like. And so Stardog decides to help Sun Bear just as she was helped in her quest. She is helping Sun Bear to look for a friend, and that sort of leads them on to doing activities together, which, like making a cake, might lead to them becoming friends, and maybe Stardog is that friend that Sunbear is looking for. Yeah, so this page, from a more kind of technical point of view, is slightly different to that previous sunflower page I did, which was more similar to the sunflowers in the last Stardog. But on this page, instead, I was painting straight on, like I was doing with a lot of the other pages in the book. So there was no pencil, no pen line or anything, not even really any sketching of the sunflowers. The only things I think I put with pencil and pen on this page was Stardog and her friends. I think maybe the balloons and the sun, but all of this, and I think I actually drew the cats and I drew the cats and their little pride rock there with all the flags, but all the kind of in-between bits were straight in with the Posca pens. And at one point I wasn't entirely sure I was going to finish, but I did, so that was good. And that leads us on to here, where they are making cake. And so for the next few pages, I started to really think about what it was that I did as a child and even as an adult. Like what do you do to create friendships and form friendships with people? And something that I really love to do is cooking and baking. So I thought baking a cake together would be a really nice friendship building activity for them all to do. When I was at university, I remember holding like sushi parties. I taught myself how to make sushi out of this Japanese cookbook when I was about 16. It was I think I was doing it almost as part of like GCSE art or A-level. I wanted to draw some sushi, and I ended up making it so I could draw it. But when I was at uni, I started doing sushi parties with friends, and another friend of mine was really good at preparing fish. So we each kind of had this skill set which we brought to our dinner party that helped us come together and make this food together and sort of balanced each other out. So I thought, what if they were each kind of, bringing a different skill set, adding a little different ingredient to their cake, working together to make something delicious and yummy that they can share at the end of it. So we've got Stardog adding in the butter, got Crow cracking an egg, Sunbear is dolloping in lots of honey, Moth is sprinkling in the sugar, Tiger and Frog are measuring out the vanilla extract and putting that in. And then also down here you can see Little Muse, and throughout the pages you can see she's now picked up a little friend down there. And over here they are sitting and eating their cake. It was also at this point in the story that I started using this picnic blanket motif. So I had that at the very beginning of the book, sitting around on the picnic table, on the picnic blanket, reading a book about sunbears. And now, as they're forming this friendship with Sunbear, we see this picnic blanket appear again. So it's a tablecloth here, and they're all sitting around the table. That one they're making cake. Here they're making paint. So they've got lots of things there. And over here, so on that art gallery garden page, we had Sunbear contemplating this idea of someone wanting to paint Sunbear. And over here, Sunbear gets the wish of being painted and having a portrait painted. And I thought it'd be really fun to, again, kind of depict part of their personalities through the type of art that they do. So we've got Stardog doing this dreamy, whimsical, impressionist painting. We've got Crow doing a much more decisive calligraphy you know, Japanese style piece of art. We've got tiger doing some gentle sketchbooking over there, and then down here we've got frog and moth sort of dancing away chaotically, throwing paint around, doing a sort of Pollock, very energetic piece of art. And I thought that'd be fun to sort of express their personalities through the type of mediums they're using. And here is Sun Bear holding a sunflower and being painted. And of course, Little Muse is being put in there as well. Oh, and I also will quickly mention, I put in this beehive here and the swallow's nest with the baby chicks and the papa swallow and the mama swallow to symbolize the home that Sun Bear has now found with Stardog and the friends. And then next, again, thinking about what it was that I did as a child to create friendships with people. And so here they are putting on a theatrical performance, which was something I used to do a lot with my friends. We'd have sleepovers and put on plays for our parents and you know, sell them tickets and make them come watch. But yeah, I think we actually had there were these playbooks called American Theatre or something like that, and it would come with instructions in. It would tell you how to put on a play, all the lines, how to do all the stage and sets and makeup. And I think that was some of the best part, is, you know, even before you put this performance on, the behind the scenes of coming together to do something creative and make something that you have all inputted in and to get enjoyment out of. And the play that they're putting on, I have them all dressed as planets, which again was a little nod back to that page where Sun Bear was looking at all the planets and thinking about them being a family and wanting to be the sun in someone's family. And here Sun Bear is center stage, is a bright shiny sun. We've got Tiger as planet Earth, Stardog is a star, Moth is a moon, Crow is Mercury, and Frog is Jolly Jupiter. And down there too you have Little Muse telling everyone to clap. And lots of little fairies and chickens and hens and little mice have come to watch their performance in this outdoor theatre. And again, I was bringing that picnic blanket in. So we've got the picnic blanket, they've got it set up there for all their getting ready, and here the picnic blanket has become curtains in their theatre to put on their performance. And then we go on to this page where it's a bit more of a calmer art after the performance, and they've made another cake there to celebrate which says Sun Bear, and just there is little Sun Bear thinking about bearing the responsibility of having another little midnight snack. And then move on to this page here, which is Stardog having a picnic with all her friends and thinking about how I had one animal but different types of that one animal. I had lots of bears on this page. So Sun Bear is now surrounded by all these other bears. We've got some dancing bears over here on the opposite bank. On the picnic blanket we've got a baby polar bear and a mama polar bear. Snuck in a little red panda. He's not really a bear but an honorary bear. Got a panda bear, and then over here is a little moon bear. And I think I was playing the bare necessities of life while painting this page. I often listen to music or audiobooks when I work on these spreads, and they can take anywhere from a week to 2 weeks to paint one of these double A3 spreads. and that is sort of working quite long hours as well each day. You know, it can be, you know, upwards of maybe like 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 to 14 days. So, you know, it can be, take quite a long time to paint these, but some of them are only a week. So like, for instance, that snow page I did with the sky, I think it only took me about 2 days. And it's usually when I have all these little details that I kind of get lost in those, and that takes up a little bit more time to do. Okay, but that takes us on to this spread, which did take me quite a long time to do. It is one of the biggest spreads. I've done one other page, I think that was this big, and I did it during summer 2020, just to keep me busy. But this page started out as just the bottom half, so it is actually 2 separate pieces, because I hadn't planned to add the top half to it when I initially started painting it. But once I finished it, I just felt that I needed to add a bit more sky to open that whole page up. And I've just stuck it together with washi tape. I've just, stuck it with washi tape, which is slightly falling apart. Just stick it more securely. But here we have all the friends, and they are on this sailing boat, which is Frog's ship that we see in the last Stardog. But in this page here, we see that we have got a different sail than the one we see in the last Stardog picture book. And instead of using Frog's typical sail, they are using that picnic blanket motif, which I've been using as Sun Bear becomes friends with Stardog and all of them. And here they're just going out to do a bit of stargazing, looking up at the sky and thinking about friendship and adventure and all the adventures that they might go on together next. And made it feel like them going on this epic adventure in this beautiful universe. And that leads us onto this page, which we're nearing the end. This is the penultimate page, and got Sun Bear and Stardog cuddling up together, getting ready to go to bed. And this again was a page informed by what I was thinking about visually at the time, and how to do certain things. So I was thinking about doing this wall of flowers and how that might look with this archway in the snow. Then over here we've got a little moon bear hidden there next to Frog as well. That was just a gentle closing page, getting us to this one here. And here is the final image before the end pages in the book. And here they are all sitting together, reading. The picnic blanket is back. They're using it as a blanket to cozy up around the fire and read a book together. Again, that was another thing I was thinking about. What did I do? What is a fun thing for children to do together to bond and become friends? I think reading a story together is definitely one of the things that I did. Talking about books and sharing a story. And that is the final page in the book. This was quite different to a lot of the other spreads, which is set outside, a lot more nature and flowers, whereas this is an interior page, and we have lots of books and a library behind, so that was quite fun to put in lots of different books. So I put in all the moons, so the moons have each month has a different name. So we've got wolf moon, snow moon, worm moon, pink moon, flower moon, strawberry moon, buck moon, sturgeon moon, harvest moon, hunter's moon, beaver's moon, and cold moon. And so that I thought would be quite fun to put little Easter eggs in there for people to peruse. Another thing I put in is over here we see This is the portrait Stardog was painting earlier in the book of Sun Bear, but it's not just of Sun Bear, it's of all the friends all together. And I thought that was a nice way to finish the book, with them reading a story and living happily ever after. And then here is the final page. This is the end pages. And so in the first end page we had Sun Bear on one side and Stardog on the other. And at the back end pages we have a moon, a sun, and Stardog next to Sun Bear, because she has now at last found Sun Bear and they have become friends. And so that is all of the artwork that went into making this book, Stardog, Where is the Sun Bear? And it took me about a year to create all that artwork. I started it last September, and I've also been working on things for the last Stardog as well in between that, and some Little Muse things in between that. But yeah, that was quite full on working on that book. So it does take me, I'm quite slow, I think. But before, I thought I'd just quickly show you. This is the sketchbook I used to plan out some of the pages, and it's very rough, very simple, and I often use colouring pencils. These are Faber-Castell. This is the phthalo blue, and I just, yeah, very sketchy sketchbook there. And that was like different ideas for the Sun Bear. But I really love, these are Pith sketchbooks, and that was some of the ways I did planning for each of the pages of the book. But then a lot of the time I do also just get the page and sketch onto the page and go straight into it with the artwork. But yeah, thank you so much for coming along, listening to this very long ramble about Stardog, Where is the Sun Bear? This is now in my Etsy. You can go and find both a hardback. This is the hardback. There is the spine, there's the front, there is the back. That's how it looks there. The text is, oh, and I also forgot to mention, so at the back of the book we've got some artwork here, but we also have some activities. So on that page where Sun Bear is making cake, I have included the apple cake recipe. So this is one of my own recipes, Sun Bear's yummy honey apple cake, and it's very easy to make. It's only got, I think, six ingredients, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 10 ingredients. Very easy to make, doesn't take too long. It says, make cake, eat cake, make more cake can always be made. And then here in the book you can paint your own art gallery and do any pictures you like. So just like you have there, you can decide what you want to have. Maybe you can paint the characters or Sun Bear or your own dog or cat. And then there's the end pages. It says night night, sleep tight, dream good dreams all night. And so that is everything. And if you get these from my Etsy, it also comes with a nice little bookmark to keep your place in the book, a nice postcard so you can send a letter to one of your own friends, say how much you love them. And it also comes with one of these little prints, which I will sign and put some things on the back of too, which is that page from the beginning of the book. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. Have a lovely evening. Happy reading, happy dreaming, happy stargazing, and I will see you again soon.
From act to act, from age to age, curtains rise upon a stage, one that all imaginations made.